Hi everybody, it's Jennifer McCreath. Today is September 22nd, 2015. Got an email from the Acting Chief Administrative Officer for the Town of Conception Bay South sending me questions as a candidate in the federal election. Let me read a little of this to you here. Good day, I am contacting you today on behalf of the Council for the Town of Conception Bay South. Council will be very interested in your responses to the following questions. Now, very interesting, ironically enough, one of those council members happens to be the mayor, who happens to be taking a leave of absence, who happens to be one of my opponents in this election. So I don't know if this is a fishing expedition to steal policy ideas from me, or if this is a legitimate, non-partisan civil servant looking for information from all candidates regardless of who they are. I've got nothing to hide, so I'll be quite happy to read your questions and answer them. So let's start with the first one. Wastewater, protecting the environment and providing clean, safe water for future generations is a priority for municipalities. Newfoundland, I'm going to turn the camera a little bit. How can we do this? In Newfoundland, secondary wastewater treatment comes at a cost of $400 million. What new predictable sources of funding will you invest in wastewater treatment to ensure municipalities do not have to divert funding away from drinking water? It's no secret that I support the environment, perhaps more so than any of the major three political parties. Perhaps not too far off from where the Green Party is. Ultimately, the issue here, I think, is that we need municipalities, the provinces, and the feds to come to the table and work together on this. It's ridiculous to see federal money going into certain parts of the country for stuff like this and being denied elsewhere. First and foremost, we need to improve the relationship between these levels of government. No secret that the various premiers of Newfoundland and Labrador have not done a good job getting along with the Prime Minister for the past decade. And I'm not blaming the premiers, I'm blaming the Prime Minister for that. As far as the relationship between the mayors and the premiers, I'm not really too familiar with that, but ultimately I am committed to doing what's best for the environment, specifically drinking water. And I can guarantee you that whoever wins this election, I will be pushing for environmental sustainability issues much like this. I will also get on the province's case. I think we spend too much time focusing on oil and not enough time looking at possible wind power, solar power, water, use of water, clean water. Yeah, absolutely. The answer is yes. I'll be all over this matter. I can't guarantee funding because, let's face it, strength in democracy is not running enough candidates to win this election. We are not going to form the next government. We are fighting for seats at the table in opposition to hold the government accountable. And that's exactly what I plan to do. Infrastructure, number 2. For many years, municipalities across the country have been clear that stable, predictable investments will lead to significant improvements in Canada's infrastructure because municipalities can bank and borrow against it, knowing that even with current federal investment, municipalities continue to struggle. What new predictable sources of funding will you invest in municipalities? I'm going to combine question 2 with 3, housing. If your party forms government, will you put a stop to the declining federal investment in affordable housing and put place a long-term plan to see all orders of government work together to tackle this critical issue? I'm seeing a trend here. The answer, I think, is the same thing. We've seen fights among the cities of St. John's and Mount Pearl over who should pay for the highway and the what do you call it? Upgrades to the roads and the bridges. What constitutes a federal road, a provincial road, a municipal road? Again, you sit down, all three of you, get to the table, talk it out. What's good for one has got to be good for them all. It's not just Tourism NL, it's Tourism Canada, it's Tourism Conception Bay South. Again, yes, I will bring these issues to the table. I will speak with the government, I will speak with the opposition parties, I will even speak with parties that don't have seats. There are 22 registered political parties and they all have great ideas. Each and every one of them will get a phone call from me on issues just like this. Infrastructure is very important. It is crumbling all over this province, and that needs to be addressed, it needs to be fixed. All levels of government need to sit down and find ways to prioritize this. Make the money available. Housing, absolutely. 2 years ago I ran as a municipal candidate and housing was a huge question in the St. John's elections. There's a Newfoundland Housing Corporation for the province. I don't hear anything about the feds doing anything for housing here in Newfoundland. So right now I'd say the Harper government has failed miserably. Yeah, I will do whatever I can to put a stop to declining federal investment. I will promote reinstating investment levels to where they need to be. We need to make sure that there's housing for everyone, affordable housing for everyone. And I'll even throw in, we need to do a better job with city planning, urban planning. Big issue 2 years ago, the urban sprawl on the borders of St. John's, which are part of the Avalon riding. We've seen some peculiar development in Paradise, CBS. We're seeing a lot of townhouses and small dwellings being built. We're not seeing a lot of condo buildings, apartment buildings, and we're not seeing the amenities that are required to form a community. A lot of these new neighborhoods don't even have a school or a grocery store, and we're just starting to realize, oh my goodness, we build 500 houses, people still need a car, and they still got to travel into St. John's in order to find a job or find a place to go shopping. Number 4, environmental sustainability, communities, and climate change adaptation. Our cities and communities bear the brunt of numerous challenges related to climate change and a need for more sustainable operations and infrastructure. We're also key players in meeting national GHG reduction in greenhouse gas, reduction in energy conservation targets. How will you work with our local government to ensure we have knowledge and resources needed to advance local and national sustainability goals? First and foremost, Stephen Harper has taken Canada from world leaders to world disgrace with regards to greenhouse gas emissions, environment. The regulations, the federal regulations, have been gutted to the point where, one, you can get away with just about anything in terms of pollution, and two, there's no enforcement, definitely no education or training. I will push whoever forms government, and I can guarantee you I will work with the Green Party because this is their forte, this is what they're all about. In fact, I'll give a shout out to my opponent in this election, Krista Byrne-Pumala, gave an excellent 10-minute interview on NTV Issues and Answers talking about this very issue. We need to recreate good quality environmental targets, goals, put laws in place, train people on how to adhere to them, as well as put together enforcement teams, and yes, devote resources to the province and to the municipalities to ensure that we understand how we can fix these problems and how we can maintain the levels that are needed. So ultimately, Canada has made commitments to the world. The G7, the G20, all these groups. Again, I go back to the reputation that we have ruined in the past 10 years. Absolutely. Environmental sustainability is huge. I also say strengthen democracy, force démocratie. We don't boast party lines. We say that we are a coalition of independent candidates. But if you go and look at the websites, 10 out of our 12 candidates are in Quebec. And they are very, very strongly, keenly interested in improving how we do environmental sustainability. So I can guarantee you, no matter who from my party gets elected, this is going to be an issue. If anything, I'm one of the people who has to at least keep the oil discussions on the table. Yeah, we realize it's bad. The oil sands, the fracking, and all this stuff is, environmental scientists are saying it's all bad. At the same time, I want to respect, I know there are many people that live in the riding of Avalon who make a living in the oil business, and I don't just want to throw them out of work. So we need a careful balance, but we need to have these discussions. Global connections. Our community can benefit by attracting trade investment if elected. What will your government do to build global connections? We have seen excellent work put in by the Mayor of St. John's, Dennis O'Keefe. Yes, I'll admit it. And our provincial tourism folks have done an amazing job with marketing, promoting, and marketing, promotion, advertising to bring in business from all over the world. We need to take the model that has been used for tourism and throw it into economic. Ultimately, and that kind of ties into, I guess, the next question, 6. I'm going to merge question 5 and 6 here. Global connections and federal employment opportunities. Recent years, we have seen the number of federal jobs in Newfoundland eroded. What type of federal job investments would you work to see in communities in our province? Something just clicked and I have no idea what it was. Sticky keys. No, I do not want to turn down. Damn computers. Strength and democracy. One of our major pillars is strength in the regions. We are seeing, I have seen it, I have driven around the riding of Avalon. Ghost towns. Towns that used to have 200 people 25 years ago are now down to 50 people. Everyone is leaving the small towns and moving to St. John's. We're even seeing some of our bigger towns. Conception Bay South, which is a growing town. Places like Harbour Grace and Carbonear, Placentia. These towns need growth, not to be devolved. We need to ensure that federal government departments don't all leave Newfoundland. Heck, remember the Peter MacKay situation? The search and rescue? Everything was taken out of Newfoundland and moved to Nova Scotia. There's an example. Bring back some search and rescue. Bring back government. Whoever forms the next government is probably going to create some new departments. They might merge some departments. They might get rid of some departments. I will push to make sure that there is equal and legitimate representation. There needs to be government offices, federal government offices all over Canada. They can't all just be in Ottawa. And they can't all just be in St. John's. I will fight to put them in the riding of Avalon. And ultimately, we need to work with industry, trade associations, boards of trades, people involved, people who have their finger on the pulse of the business community in the province, both in and outside of the big city of St. John's. I don't have all the answers, but I know other people have great ideas. There are ways to promote growth, global growth, getting people to come to Newfoundland, set up shop, create businesses. And that's exactly, I want to create a dialogue. I want to create a forum where people with these great business ideas can bring them to me, and I can take them directly to Ottawa. I can get right into the face, whether it's Trudeau, Mulcair, Harper, or whoever, and I'll sit down with whoever the Premier is, and we'll have these discussions. Heck, I'll reach out to Dennis O'Keefe. Say, Dennis, help me reach out to these connections you've made all over the world. It was in the paper last week. Dennis traveled to Houston and in California and I can't even remember, all over the world promoting St. John's. Take advantage of these connections. Open up new doors. There's got to be a lot of money out there in the world somewhere. People are looking to invest. And when they do come here, I want to make sure that there are jobs here. It really bugs me to see jobs eliminated. I look at what's happening with the fish processing business. We are now shipping raw materials out, and the production jobs are now out. A lot of people are upset with that, and they've told me. Ultimately, we need jobs. If we want to fix this economic depression, this recession, this mess that we're in, People need jobs. We need to find ways to stimulate the economy. One way of doing that is have government spend money. The other way to do it is to create jobs so there's more disposable income. People will have money to spend. Accessibility. Will you be ready, available when needed to address the needs of municipalities, both current and those that evolved during your term? Absolutely, yes. I've made it quite clear that my door will be open. I'm very internet savvy. Facebook, email, Twitter, telephone, face-to-face, absolutely. If elected, I will open not one but 2 offices in the riding. I know that previous members have kept close to the CBS area. I think it's important that there be a place all over the region. I'm not sure if it would be Harbor Grace or if it would be Placentia, but there needs to be satellite offices. People need to be able to access their MP without having to drive 3 hours. And yeah, accessibility #1, no problems with that at all. So I don't know if that gives you the answers you want, but that's the answers I'm giving you. I'm open to discussing further if anyone has any questions about any of this. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to my video, and thank you very much CBS for sending me those questions. I'm Jennifer McCreath. For more information about my campaign, you can go to votejennifer.info. Thank you.